Right. Okay. My address will be very short, but let me read it out so that I don't leave out anything. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I'll also say good evening and good morning to our local, national, and international guests from different time zones, because there are 4 time zones involved here. I am Nazia Khanum, founder chair of United Nations Association Luton branch. We set it up in 2009, quite a few years ago, and our aim was, and still is, to raise awareness about the United Nations Millennium Goals, which were followed by its Sustainable Development Goals now. And we also try to inspire action, because rhetoric we have heard enough, and we try to motivate people to take some actions to promote all of those things that they promised to do. Our priority from the start has been to raise awareness about climate crisis and motivate people to take action to stop climate deterioration and promote its reversal to a healthy environment. In the past, we have invited quite a lot of people we invited in the past, and they included scientists, innovators, oceanographers, policymakers, politicians.
Can we bring them back?
No, I've got some dates, but I need to.
Oh, Hillary's got some
I
dates.
can't do it till after 6.
Could you mute yourselves, please? We hope we have muted.
All right, tomorrow morning she'll ring them. Okay.
No, we haven't.
All right, okay, David. You're fine. How are you? Yeah? Yeah, well, I've got one. Yeah, sure.
Mute is. Yeah. Have we muted everyone?
I think so.
So we hope that people have been muted, but I don't think I can see everybody muted. But anyway, let's start again. The people in the past that we invited, particularly to raise awareness about climate crisis and what action should be taken, they included a lot of people from different areas. Like, for example, we invited scientists, innovators, oceanographers, policymakers, politicians, environmentalists, educationalists, and civil society climate activists. And our aim was to spread knowledge and also understanding of what kind of roles we can play. Even if we are not scientists, we have some role to play as citizens of a country and so on. Individually, I know some people who actually have changed their lifestyles totally. And that's unbelievable, but it has happened, because I know some of the meat eaters like me. I was a big meat eater. But now, if you look at my lifestyle, vegetables actually form most of it, and very rarely I eat meat. And I know some of the people like Fatima Islam, it's unbelievable. She doesn't eat meat at all. So there you are. So some people have changed their lifestyle in a different ways. And however, changes need to be made urgently by all multinational organizations, all societies and countries, rich and poor, big and small, and by groups and individuals. While the world converges on Glasgow for COP26, we have decided to explore a so far unexplored area of powerful force. And that is the world of faiths and beliefs, which can be harnessed and united to transform lives and societies for the better. I personally believe it is possible and necessary to galvanize the beautiful messages of diverse faiths and beliefs towards saving lives, nature, and the environment. So we from the UNA Luton branch have teamed up with Luton Council of Faiths, grassroots, and the near neighbors to explore nature and the environment from the perspective of faith and beliefs. The big question in front of us now is, will COP26 find the answer to the powerful question put by the youth of the world? Why are you burning our future? It's a very big question, and a very pertinent one as well. And we hope the world leaders will find the answer and also coordinate actions to achieve positive results. And we also hope that the United Kingdom will provide much needed, robust, and clear-eyed leadership at this World Summit Some people may doubt it, but let's hope that that might happen and that should happen. We also hope to see real unified emergency global action at government level, both to resolve the COVID-19 pandemic and the climate crisis. Most importantly, we want to see real action on the part of the rich countries to provide financial and technological support to the poorer countries for building capacity and resilience to deal with the climate crisis. We would like to see justice done to the climate refugees of the world. At this webinar, let's hope what hope, faiths, and beliefs can give us to save life by saving nature and the environment, because that is what we are here to hear from various faith-based representatives who are here today. There are some very special guests among us today, and we're looking forward to hearing from them. And first of all, I will actually ask Lord Mackenzie to say something, because it's very difficult to find him these days attending these kind of meetings and say anything at all. So here you are, sir. Would you like to say anything at all? Lord Bill Mackenzie. Hello? Can you hear me, Lord Mackenzie?
Bill, you're still muted.
You are still muted.
Yes.
You are muted. Can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself?
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you now. Yes, we can. Yes.
Right. A false start. Sorry about that. Let me first of all offer my thanks for the opportunity of joining you today on another fascinating but vitally important topic. I think these are excellent programs, and I think that's demonstrated by the extent to which they can draw in people of real knowledge and expertise. I'm afraid I'm still a bit of a meat eater, but in fact, going out to dinner after this session. But I'll try and mend my ways. The rubric about doing the right thing, doing exercise, preserve, protect, and promote nature is a fascinating topic, and quite a broad one. It goes to the very heart of property laws, who has development rights, who owns what, how do you deal with inheritance through the ages. I don't know the extent to which we're going to get into that this afternoon, but I hope we have at least a chance to scratch the surface of that. It seems to me it's one of the most fundamental things if we are serious about democracy, about equity, about sharing what we have, that has to apply to property, to the laws of the land, and raises fascinating questions. I mean, a very simple one, for example, is when do we develop land to provide housing for the poor and eat into agricultural opportunities. We need to work through all of this. I don't think any country has done it particularly successfully, although maybe somebody will come up with a different comment. I better perhaps stop prattling on and pass it over to others, but to thank you again for this opportunity, but to say there's a real agenda here, which I look forward to perhaps joining in, but certainly listening in. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us, not just with your presence, but verbally as well, which we welcome very much, as always. Yes, of course. I mean, there are many dilemmas of what to do first, what priority to be sort of worked on. But serious deforestation in Amazon and other areas will have to be looked at very seriously by governments of the world. And that's where the problems are coming from, rather than small agricultural lands or housing in countries like this. So we'll have to look at the big deforestation, how to stop those kinds of stuff. Right, what I'm going to do, thank you again. What I'm going to do now is to invite Professor Zafar Khan, Chair of Luton Council of Faiths, to welcome you all on behalf of his organization, because I have done from the United Nations Association Luton branch. Zafar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nazia Khanam. And I'm also very pleased to see many friends of long-standing and indeed some hopefully new friends. Nazia, we as a Luton Council of Faiths are particularly privileged to team up with the UNA and also near neighbors to actually play our part in what is tremendously, crucially important, both in local and national and international context. And you know, it's much bigger than any one of us, whether as an individual or an organization. But I think its importance cannot be underestimated, because in my view, which is just a layman's view without much scientific study, but some appreciation of implications if we let it simply, out of control, that humanity's future depends on many of the policies to rest the situation where it is, and not to let it actually get out of hand. And indeed, I personally look forward to listening to some of the experts this afternoon on that. But I believe I believe that we have an innate inner energy. In fact, there's tremendous energy in all of us. And when it's put together as a social movement, as a social, if you like, reaction to some very pressing issues and challenges, then I think it is that at that level, grassroots level, popular level, people's level, that I think we need to be very much focused on. And I welcome all of the participants in this seminar to perhaps look at all those. And I mean, you mentioned perhaps impact is not small on any of us, whether it is Luton or Britain or the Amazon. But you see, if we look at the Himalayas, for example, some of the huge glaciers outside of the Arctic Circle and Arctic are in the Himalayas, particularly in the north of Himalayas, where and those have started to melt, and the implications of that are huge. 4 or 5 of the rivers, sort of western rivers in the subcontinent, actually flow from these, and the other mighty river that flows from the other side, in the eastern side, actually can have a devastating impact on a country like Bangladesh, and which it does every year and every season. And even as we speak, it is having the Brahmaputra is having the impact, and the Indus system of water and all that, and it's having huge impact. I tell you, on communities. Deforestation is also taking place in our part of the world. When I say our part of the world, I mean South Asia, and I don't particularly want to make any political remarks here, but I think it is beyond politics, you see. And nation states, whether it is Britain or whether it is the upcoming nations, who feel that they need to catch up and that they've been left behind. Industrial revolution started in the West in the 17th or 18th or century or whatever, or the 19th century. And so they were left behind, or whatever the politics and history of that is. But I think all nations have an opportunity, to make a fresh start. Because here we have new methods of energy and harnessing of energy, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. So today's world and upcoming nations or economies, if I could use that term, have an opportunity to actually be ahead of the curve of the developed nations, and not to sort of get into those traditional arguments. But those arguments are also very important, because the established economies have a huge amount of resources, not only financial resources, but other resources, and they have to make a contribution. But I think it's the people's level that is very important for organizations like us. We need to mobilize our energy to sort of encourage our rulers that they need to make policies and implement those policies. And COP26 or the previous one in Paris, we know what happened in Paris, and that is disaster. So all leaders have to actually work in unison, and people need to actually encourage them to do that. And sometimes not just encourage, maybe force them to do so. And young people in particular are, I think, the answer to our dilemmas that we face. And young people are becoming. Anyway, I think maybe I'll stop here, because there's another perhaps discussion going on there. But on this note, that we have a role to play both at local level as well as in Britain and across the world. And I think that role is long due now, and we need to continue to do that. And Nazia, thank you very much for doing all this, and we are very happy to team up with you as always, and very happy to see Bill Mackenzie and hear him speak. And wish him best of health and future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zafar. It was all very, very pertinent points you have raised. Thank you. What I'm going to do now, because our time is also limited, only 2 hours, so I'm going to ask Dr. David Cheeseman to read out Helen Nellis, Lord Lieutenant of Bedfordshire's letter. She has sent a message. She was very sorry not to be able to come, but she came to quite a lot of our previous events, so I don't mind that much if sometimes she can't. She's very busy. David, would you like to read out her letter?
Yeah, this is the message from Helen Nellis, the Lord Lieutenant of Bedfordshire, on behalf of the Queen. My sincere apologies that I'm not free to join you for this important discussion on how we can all play our part in protecting our environment going forward. Protecting our planet is the responsibility of each one of us, and it is clear that we must change our behaviours and our relationship with nature now if we are to sustain the beauty of our world for the generations that will follow us. We have a proud tradition of working together in Bedfordshire across cultural and faith traditions to find the best way to help each other improve our environment for all. Just as each of us is connected as human beings one to another, so we are deeply connected to the natural environment. I strongly support your determination to seek the best ways to raise awareness of how our communities can make a difference urgently. I hope that your conference is a great success and that you will take forward some actions from your discussions.
Thank you, David. And we will send our thanks, obviously, to the Lord Lieutenant for being indirectly present today with us. She always supports us anyway. She's very, very good on this. I am now going to invite our Mayor, Councillor Mahmood Hussain, to welcome the international guests to Luton, and of course, national guests as well, because there are some people who don't live in Luton, but they are here from the United Kingdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nazia Khanum. Thank you for inviting us all. But first of all, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning or evening, depending what part of the world you are and what time zone you are. As Dr. Nazia Khanum introduced, I'm Councillor Mahmood Hussain, Mayor of Luton. As Luton's first citizen, I welcome you all to our super diverse town. It has many different cultures and religions, but more importantly, every time I mention how many languages, I'm told that there is one more now. And we have, the last time I mentioned 120, my colleagues in Leeds said we have 130. So I'm not in a competition today. I hope that people claim that they have more languages than ourselves. We celebrate our diversity and are truly united as compassionate human beings and the love for this town as our home. Today's conference topic is very important. We all know that human beings are mainly responsible for climate crisis, which may render our Earth uninhabitable. We do not take robust action across all countries and all of us individually by changing our lifestyles. And I've stopped eating meat 30 years ago, so I can tell you that I have done something before this climate crisis were brought. The COP26 World Conference in November will be held in Glasgow as we now to argue the world leaders, scientists, multinational and individuals to make the necessary effort to avert the crisis without wasting a single moment. Dr. Nazia Khanum, OBE, chair of the United Nations Association Luton branch, organized as many as 3 events this year to raise awareness about climate crisis and solution. This one is the 4th one, and one is equally important because this is the first time UNA Luton is providing a platform to raise awareness from the faith perspective. She has also involved other relevant organizations for this seminar. I congratulate Dr. Nazia Khanum and our colleagues to this UNA Luton branch, and also Luton Council of Faith, grassroots, near neighbors, to join together in partnership to provide us with this interesting virtual webinar. I eagerly wait to hear the other participants, and I wish the conference a success. I'm afraid I may not be able to stay with you towards the end because I've got another engagement which I need to do that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very warm welcome to everybody. Thank you. I'm going to invite now a very rare person who actually, this is his first debut, I would say, at our event. And that's Right Reverend Richard Atkinson OBE, Bishop of Bedford. And he's here, and I'm so pleased he's here. Would you like to address our guests, sir? Thank you.
Nazia, thank you everybody. Good afternoon. It's been diary clashes in the past, but I'm delighted that I've got here now. So thank you. Delighted just to have a very brief contribution on a huge subject from a Christian perspective, but also as someone who believes that faith communities have much to bring to this as we work with all people together. For me, Zafar mentioned Bangladesh. I think it was a trip to Bangladesh that made me see things properly, not least visiting people for whom daily life was directly affected by rising sea levels, salination of fresh water, climate change and whatever. I suddenly, it's not a great insight, but that was when I properly took on board that what we face is not just a lifestyle issue, but a life issue. It's a life and death issue. And that was my sort of eye-opening moment. I speak as a Christian, but somebody's been heavily involved in faith. But as a Christian, I believe there's much in our tradition, which if we tune in properly and learn, can inspire us and give us hope. But I also know that we have got it wrong at times and we've been slow to the table. And so we have to say sorry for that, and we have to learn from that. But 3 things that give me hope. I think, Nazia, you just said, could I say something about hope in the Christian tradition? but I know it's echoed in other faith traditions as well. Firstly, simply the sense that the creation is God's gift to us. The psalmist says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it. And for me, the hope comes from, if we delight in that, in creation as a gift, then that opens our hearts and our minds and our commitment to the possibility of treasuring it. Secondly, the Christian tradition is about not just saying sorry, but it is about the capacity, it is about repentance, which is the Greek word metanoia, is about turning round. And whatever our faith or belief background, the capacity as humans to say sorry, to turn round and do things differently. And part of that, of course, for me, is the divine gifts of creativity. We're in a county where at places like Cranfield University, great work is going on to explore how we care for the environment and how we respond to it using the best of the minds among us. So I have hope that we can do things differently. And again, it was Zafar who talked about doing things at the people level. We need it at all levels, but actually I have great faith in people, and particularly in people of all faiths and beliefs working together for that good. And then just thirdly, at the heart of not just the Christian tradition, but as a Christian, the command to love our neighbour partly means that my eyes are open to those who are hurting most in our world. And the more that I keep on asking that question, the more that I see, particularly in relation to climate and climate justice and the environment. But also, and I think this is critical and something that we all struggle with, love for neighbour is not just this generation, but it is future generations. It's that care for those who are to come and living in a way that looks beyond ourselves to others. I believe we can do that, and I believe we can be inspired to do that, but I know that's not easy. So what gives me hope? Actually, the hope that ultimately, if we treasure creation, if we have the courage to say we've got it wrong and turn around and to use the gifts we've been given, and we have a real commitment to ask who is our neighbour, both now and to come, and do something about it. Warren Buffett, the finance person, said about trees, someone sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree long ago. Trees are that great, aren't they? Investment in the future. It's not just about trees, but I'm glad that in the next year there's going to be a lot of emphasis on the Queen's Platinum Jubilee and planting trees and the like. So in the end, my hope is inspired for me as a Christian by some of those words of hope, that I can both literally and metaphorically plant trees to change the world in which we live. Thank you, Nazia.
Thank you very much for that. It's really a sobering thought that when you talk about Bangladesh and other poor countries, I come from Bangladesh and I know how it hurts. 1/3 of my country will be underwater if nothing is done about climate crisis now. And for no fault of our own, we haven't polluted the climate, and many countries haven't polluted the climate, but the rich countries still, if you look at, Zafar mentioned the Paris Agreement, but although that was legally binding agreement for all of the signatory countries, but if you look at their performance, it is appalling, it's shameful, it's shameful. That's why this COP26, again, is a chance, another opportunity. Say sorry and move on then and do something about it, as you have said. Say sorry, we haven't done it yet, but we will now. So there is some hope for the world, and I hope that will happen. I'm not going to give up hope, although many times I thought probably there is no hope, but there is always hope. I'm going to read out. Thank you again, Bishop of Bedford. My goodness, your face is so familiar. Wherever I go, I see you, basically, almost omnipresent. Anyway, thank you. Thank you again. I'm going to read out now Rachel Hopkins' email, which she has sent me. I got it only today. I hope I don't struggle to read it. Sometimes I do. Dear Nazia, thank you for the opportunity to send a message of support for the event today, and I'm sorry not to be able to join you. I want to congratulate UNA Luton for its work on the climate crisis and for arranging this timely event in the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow. The diverse perspectives of people who hold different beliefs are vital in discussions on how we, as members of local, national, and international communities, can promote solutions to the challenges threatening nature and the environment. As a humanist, I encourage rational and evidence-based dialogue. We are part of a wider natural world, and it is our moral duty to enhance and protect it for future generations. Within the climate action commitments at COP26, we need to see cast iron environmental protections and nature-based solutions. To protect nature, we must stop global deforestation. Nature is declining as species are forced to the brink of extinction through deforestation across the world, most notably in the Amazon. Halting and reversing biodiversity loss is key to limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The UK government should lead by example in the battle against climate change by aligning all public spending and infrastructure decisions with our climate and nature commitments. I hope you enjoy hearing from the different speakers and that we can continue working together to propose solutions to the climate crisis. Rachel Hopkins, MP for Luton South. She's always with us anyway. She's a very good MP, as Sarah Owen is for Luton North. Thank you for listening to the messages from the dignitaries and their words of wisdom. And now I'm going to get right into the actual program.
Dr. Nazia, sorry to interrupt you. Sarah Owen is there with us in case if you want to give her a couple of minutes to say something.
Yeah, of course, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Nazia. Don't worry, I won't be too long because I know that we've got plenty to get into for this meeting today. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for inviting me. And hello to all of our international guests and our guests closer to home as well. And thank you to Luton Council of Faith as well for putting this joint meeting on with the UN Association branch. It's such an important, and as Rachel had said in her statement, timely meeting ahead of COP26. And I was really struck by the words from the Bishop of Bedford. To me, climate change and environmental injustice is social injustice. And what we're seeing right now is fires, flood, famine. And we used to talk about climate denial, but now we are seeing climate delays. And those are the things that we cannot have anymore. It's no longer a conversation about whether climate change exists. It's a conversation about how quickly we can act. And I think we've talked a bit about the international leadership that's needed. And Dr. Nazia, you talked about the Paris Agreement. And one of the things that I think when we sign up to agreements, to pledges, to promises to take better care of our planet for future generations and the current one, they have to be legally binding. And what happens, unfortunately, recently with the Australia and British trade deal is that a lot of what was agreed in the Paris Climate Agreement has been pushed aside. And what we can never do is look in a short-sighted term to what is financially efficient compared to what is environmentally efficient, because when we look at the impact that that has across the world, we all lose out. And I was intrigued to hear about hope, because when we look at the state of our planet, I think it can be a very dark place. How do we get off this hideous roller coaster of destroying our planet? And actually, it's always the young people that give me hope. There are a number of schools in Luton who all lobbied us politicians to say what was happening to the planet. And a lot of them had linked the environmental and social injustice that climate change has brought about, not just across the world, but in our town as well. When you look at the levels of health inequalities brought about by air pollution, for example, and limited access to just being outside spaces and being able to play or to be able to do sport. So they had put us a task, and obviously Rachel and I always will hold the government to account when it comes to our climate change agreements. But what do we do as just ourselves? And the mayor wonderfully said that he's been vegetarian for a number of years. I haven't gone that far. But one of the things that I have done to make a difference, and just small things that we can make a big difference, is to stop buying quite so much, certainly buying new. I now frequently go to my charity shops if I'm going to buy anything, because we can reduce the amount of things that are being manufactured, and we know that the clothing industry is one of the biggest contributors to wastewater and polluted water in the entire world, as well as being a low-paid industry which really harms particularly women workers in the world. And as well as being able to support local charities. If you go down Marsh Road, for example, you can see Keach Hospice, you go to Sue Ryder, and you know that when you're purchasing something, not only are you not buying something new and harming the planet, you're also contributing to a good cause. So there's lots of different ways that we can all take different steps to try and help solve this problem. But whenever I need hope, I just go and speak to the young people of Luton and I listen to them.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It's fantastic. Thank you. I couldn't see you. You have to forgive me. I'm getting old. I couldn't see you at all. And I didn't know that you would be here either. So I thought sometimes you are so busy that what Rachel says, you and Rachel together say it, or when you say Rachel can't come, two of you say the same thing. So I just covered it by her message. But anyway, I'm so glad you are here. And that's what I want to hear, that the young people actually are putting pressure on us to do something. And we have to, we cannot, if we have any moral sort of fiber in us, we cannot leave a world which is uninhabitable by our young people. We cannot do that. Anyway, thank you very much. I'll have to now invite somebody who is not really from he's from a faith background, but he's not going to speak from the faith background, as it were. He's a solid scientist, so from solid science background, and he's a teacher as well. But he has written a book which blew me away, absolutely. It's called The Blue Moon, Why is the Moon So Blue? And his name is Abu Shama. It's a mystic story, a love story between the earth and the moon. And it actually gives you the entire history in the poem, in his poem, about how the world changed from whatever it was and what it is now. And the interesting thing is that we human beings have messed up our world, no doubt about that. And the Mother Earth is now crying out, my child, my children, what have you done to me? And it is at a tipping point. Can we reverse the process? So that is the entire thing about this mystic story. But the illustrations of all of those things really blew me away, particularly when I saw all those animals, huge dinosaurs. They lived far longer and ruled the earth far longer than humans have done so far. And yet they are gone. So probably if we are not careful, we will be extinct, but the world will live on and will have new species. That's quite possible. So I think that mystic story really focused my mind, and I invited him to tell his story very briefly. So may I now invite Abu Shama, the author of that book, to tell us the mystic story. The floor is yours, Abu.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor and a privilege. I'm going to dive straight in because I've got 10 minutes. If I may, I would like to share my screen, if that's okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So yes, you can see the blue moon, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so let's start. So I've written a book called The Blue Moon, Why is the Moon So Blue? And I don't really give much detail in the beginning of the book because it's more of an artistic experience. So let's see what this book is about. Okay. Too far. Okay, overview of this moon. It's a story that's been set in space and time, and it's a story between the Earth, Moon, life, and man, and their relationship. And I used a particular constant, which is the moon. The moon is like the reflected light of the sun. So it sort of like gives this, you know, it's a good analogy to project what's going on Earth and how people are feeling. It's a love story, and it sort of like gives a snapshot of history. And the language I've used is quite poetic. It's rich, and it's got this mystical undertone. And I use words where they have this like very precise meaning, and at the same time very broad, emotive, captivating. And the idea is like word is both. Sorry, art is both word and artwork. So what I try to do is I try to marry both between imagery and the written word, and try to convey something so that moves people to feel something and awaken something within themselves that lies dormant. Why the book was written is basically to celebrate life, the specialness of life, the rareness of life in the universe, and it's to connect us back to our history. So we look back in a way to go forward, to learn from it, to learn how we came here, our journey, that we have this amazing planet which we call Mother Earth, and we appreciate nature and how we can benefit from her and not abuse her and have this beautiful symbiotic relationship. And at the same time, I thought, okay, let's incorporate some of the human impact that we've had on our planet, especially with the climate change. And to recognize where we are now, which is we are at a tipping point, and we can do something. We can either save it or we can push it. And it's the next generation. We've heard this. The next generation is what we're trying to protect. And then I don't want to make this book about doom and gloom. So there's this idea that we've heard a few times already, this idea of hope, that even when we look back in our history, we see nature has always recovered, and it will also always recover. The question is it going to recover with us or without us? Okay, so this particular book has like 6 different acts that I have. So the first part is like building that relationship between the Earth and the Moon and the love that they have. And then this outside force comes and terrorizes and destroys the planet. And then the aftermath, and the shock and the turbulence that goes through. And then it gives birth to, it recovers and gives birth to a new entity. But that entity starts off loving, and then there's this kind of like slave master relationship. And then the voices of concern rises, and that's like the moon here. And the last thing is this idea of return and hope and going back basically to where we are, because this innate quality of recognizing what is good and promoting what is good. Okay, so the book is written in a number of layers, and you can read it in different layers. There's around 6 layers I've written the book in, but I'm not going to go into this. I'm going to go straight into the book, if that's okay. And I'm going to do a selective reading of different parts, try to convey here and there. And it's quite difficult because there's around 60 pages, 60 or 70 pages, and it's difficult to pick out the pages that I could share. So what I'm going to do is the first part, I'm going to share about the formation of the Earth and the Moon and how that love blossoms. So here we have this idea that we're a people who love telling stories. And I use the speech mark at the front to say that we're all telling stories. So it starts off like this: 1 million lifetimes ago, 2 celestial bodies encountered fate's arrow. A chance meeting brought them together, a momentary embrace, and then separation soon after. And here you see I've actually talked about 2 different conflicts that's happening between science, the story of science, and the story of fate, which is kind of that religious thing. And there's this kind of like conflict that could happen, but something beautiful happens as a result of it. So we can see conflicts as a way of actually bringing about new ways of thinking. And every time you encounter something new gives way, and you have this lasting token. So as they untangled and parted ways, each left behind a token and lasting age. So this is how the Earth and the Moon came to be. And as they all both go in their separate ways, you have the earth rejoicing and celebrating that little moment that they had, because it's going to become something amazing. And the moon, which becomes barren, lamented that parting, because this is the time that it actually had this kind of connection with something other than itself. So it pines for reunion. And so that sort of like explains why the moon might be blue, but we'll see. And then what happens is the earth then undergoes this amazing transformation, this metamorphosis into something that's going to be stunning. But in that process, metamorphosis is change is difficult and it's turbulent and it's troublesome. So you have these volcanoes erupting, sky rumbling, earthquakes, and then you have land storing here, gases and meteorites and ice, and it's just a blazing inferno. And so that concerns him, and he sees this everywhere. So Moon beheld Earth with fondness and concern. Wherever he looked, incredible metamorphoses transpired at every turn. And then we go through it, and with time, what happens is he sees this amazing spectacle in front of his eyes. So Moon's worry and concern gave way to happiness and joy. For Earth staged the most incredible show for him to enjoy. So from that chaos comes this life, which emerges from the sea, and it takes a long time to come to that point. And then amidst the seas, life came to be in slow degrees. So it's taken a long time, a gradual process. And then the earth has this like breathing time where it oxidation happens and it has oxygen, which is taken around 500 million years, sorry, it's 500 million years ago from now. So it's taken about 4 billion years to get to this stage. So life diversified and new life emerged thick and fast, each more complex and more accomplished than the last. Plants sprouted in spring, birds sang in amongst the trees, insects appeared and animals flourished on the land and the seas. Earth now enlivened with 1,000 splendid sounds. Layers of fragrance perfumed her from the sky to the ground. So if you think about it, we're the only entity, or this is the only planet that's got life, where there's texture, there's sense, there's these perfume, and it's making, this is something spectacular. No other place in the universe that we know is like this. So it's making her to become beautiful. So what happens? Life draped her in a multitude of colors and the most beautiful gown and transformed her as the jewel in the heavens crown. Earth looks stunning, shimmering like an exquisite pearl. Amazing what can arise from a cloud of dust and swirl. So from humble beginnings, we get this amazing planet. And often you'll hear the astronauts saying, when they look back on Earth, they see this and they fall in love and they really want to do something about it. The sky was adorned, beholding her sight. She filled Moon's entire horizon with delight. Love blossomed in the cold emptiness of space. The center of his universe she became by love's grace. So he basically falls in love with her. And then there's this kind of like pull at his core, and which creates the tidal currents, and he becomes enslaved to her. What does this enslavement do? It makes him go round and round around her. Round and round, Moon followed Earth in an endless chase, two celestial bound in union for time, for all time and space. So you have this like beautiful merry dance between the Moon and the Earth, and each the Moon having this amazing sight to behold. Now then, the Earth comes under attack. So I'm going to go very quickly. Earth comes under attack from this outside force. And what happens? So there's this asteroid that comes along, which is unintelligent. It doesn't realize what it's going to do. So collision was imminent. The asteroid had set course for Earth. The heavens gasped, because the heavens like witnessing this. Doesn't this brute know her worth? So it's a brute. It doesn't understand. It doesn't understand what it's going to destroy. And then destruction happens, and a lot of the animals become extinct and so on. And a long time passes, and the Moon sees the Earth after a long time. And it says that, he sees the devastation that's been left, but then he smiles, because even from that, life emerges. And from that life, a great number of millennia passes, and then human beings come along. And in the story of human beings, we have this formed of fire, wind, air, water, and the very heart of Earth. Man sprouted forth humbly as Earth rejoiced to his birth, because this is the most spectacular of her creation. He sowed love within the heart of the earth, and she nourished man with harvest and mirth. So here I'm saying that he sowed love. Love is the same word in Arabic. In Arabic, the word for love is the same root as seed. So he's sowing seeds, and seeds, you need to nurture it. And as a result, he does that. She basically gives something back. Man cultivated and replenished her on a daily basis, and in return, she turned her desert in lush oasis. So there is this kind of beautiful relationship between a mother and a child. And then we can come into the Anthropocene era, which is of betrayal. So suddenly his whole demeanor changes. Man forgot he was part of earth and that mother-child bond, standing apart from her. So he sees himself something different. His eyes cast on the prize beyond. Blinded by greed and conceit, earth becomes something to conquer, ushering the Anthropocene age of dominance and error. And what does that lead to? That leads to him learning about lots of these amazing things that is taken from nature. But instead of wielding it for good, sometimes he uses to harm. So instead, conflicts ensued. He built walls and threw reckless tantrums like a baby. Wars were fought, and earth was betrayed and held to a ransom. So instead of fighting for Mother Earth, we're fighting over Mother Earth. And then he bent and exploited the natural world to his every whim and will, needs, wants, and desires, click, click, empty baskets and voids to fill. So with this need of, like, this is what I want, and I must have it. He plundered the seas, and consumption grew like a wild disease, like an infectious disease. Just because somebody else has it, I need to have it. Man divided the earth and profiteered from her on an industrial scale. So the earth becomes this industry, and she becomes commodified into products open for trade, ready for sale. So every part of the earth has been broken up, and it's become a plaything in the hands of people opening up their business. So we have this imagery of this earth being broken and put into like a putty and dissected and shipped off. And then we have this, we spoke about the trees and so on, and I'm not going to read this one because of time. And then we have this great realization. So the story, this is the last part, the story goes towards this great realization. There's this time for hope. So on the horizon, so we are the new asteroid. So we saw what the asteroid did, but we're the asteroid that actually has intelligence, so we could do something about it. On the horizon, a new existential threat eventually did appear. Earth was facing collapse as the human asteroid drew near. As man burnt brightly, Earth fell upon her knees. Softly she pleaded, "O child of mine, I am your mother, please." The great mother was silently crying. Earth was being dismantled and slowly dying. And again, this idea of words, dismantled, the earth has a mantle core, and it's been basically ripped apart. The very essence of her has been ripped apart. And then one winter's day, something changed, both remarkable and strange. The great mother retaliated. Right, it's time for change. So we have these natural disasters and these illnesses that come every now and then. It gives us an opportunity to reflect and draw lesson. I've got 2 more slides and I will be done. And then he goes into this lockdown. So like what we've experienced, man reflected deeply and saw the errors of his self-serving ways. Time to act and redress the wrongs of the old irresponsible days. Man had this great realization. It was welcomed and long overdue. Unsustainable practices cannot continue. It's time to begin anew. And we have this idea of the hope, the child that brings that hope. And then this is the last slide. In its place, hopefully this is the next generation. We will give this to the next generation so that they will take this forward. In its place, a new idea emerged. Man is not separate from earth. We are all one. The great mother breathed relief. Oh, my son. And then for the first time in a long, long while, Moon remembered again how to smile. So this idea that it's reflecting back us, the wise person is reflecting back that particular voice. And that's pretty much it. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Abu Shama. This is really a fantastic story and fast forwarded so much, but still we enjoyed the essence of it. And I'm going to set up in the future a complete session just on storytelling. And I hope that Abu Shama will get a better chance to tell his story, which has blown me away, as I said. Thank you. Can I go back to now the proper screen? Right, okay, thank you very much. And it was fantastic. I'm now going to invite, because time is pressing on, I'm going to invite now Dr. Muhammad Al-Ramahi, a principal lecturer in law at the University of Bedfordshire. He's the founder chair also of the Race Equality Network at the University of Bedfordshire, which is a fantastic organization to build up. He participated at United Nations Association Luton's event several times by now in the past. And he's going to speak from the perspective of Islam. So may I now invite Dr. Muhammad Al-Ramahi to share his thoughts with us from Islamic perspective.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Khanum, and everyone here. This is a lovely event, and I'm honored and privileged to be with all of you. I was asked to speak about, to reflect on nature and the environment from Luton's diverse faith communities. And the very first thing I was thinking about is really reflecting on the diversity of our wonderful town. Luton is a super diverse town. Over 50% of its residents and nearly 80% of pupils in Luton's school come actually from Black, Asian, minority ethnic communities with diverse faith groups. The principle of equal opportunity and equality also embedded on Council's Luton Council 2020-2040 vision. Likewise, from where I come from, the Race Equality Network in the University of Bedfordshire. Here at the university, we have a very diverse body of students and staff workforce. More than 60% of our students come from Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups, and more than a third of our staff are actually from the same group. So we are really delighted to be talking about environment, climate change. I couldn't agree more with all the previous prominent speakers who talked about how timely this discussion and debate is, given that COP26 is just around the corner. So I will start by saying that actually Islam doesn't really differ significantly from other faith group, like the bishop and other speakers talked earlier on. There are significant commonalities when it comes to our role as really Lutonians, and by the way, Luton is part of the United Kingdom. It's part of the world, and likewise, if you are Muslim, if you are Christian, Jewish, and so on and so forth, you're still part of this entire world, and we all share common responsibilities. So the first thing sorry, I'm just okay. So Islam is actually one of the largest religions in the world. Literature suggests it's the second largest faith group worldwide and one of the most prominent in our town. But up to now, there hasn't really been much research into the relationship between climate change and Islam. There is a growing body of research which stresses the importance of religion in understanding and addressing climate change, but there is little about it in the Islamic literature, that sort of relationship between the impact of climate change and the role of the Muslims in that respect. So my presentation, or rather my short presentation today, is an attempt to articulate that there is number of things that we need to consider. So first of all, in terms of interpretations, I'm trying to look at this from international perspective. As I said, there is no really difference. I mean, whether we are from Luton, the UK, or global citizens, if you like, it's still the same thing. So I really want to talk very quickly about the interpretation of climate change among Muslims worldwide. And then I will move on and talk about some, if you like, steps that Muslims can do, like other faith group, to mitigate the effect of climate change in our own communities. So in the, just shedding some light on the importance of environment. The source of Islam are mainly around the Quran, the Holy Book Quran, and the saying of the Prophet Muhammad. So from the Quran, we have a number of verses in the Quran that really talks about the environment, the importance of environment, sustainability, and likewise, I know that one of the previous speakers talked about the Jubilee, the green canopy, and the importance of planting trees. We talked always about planting trees, really wonderful thing. And actually, Islam, as I said, there's not really big difference with other faith group. In fact, Prophet Muhammad says, plant a tree, even if it is your last deed. Even if it is your last deed, just plant that tree. And that really signifies, in my view, the importance of the environment and protecting the environment from Islamic perspective. So in terms of ahead of the COP26, and this is a very, very important event, as everyone in this meeting will agree. World leaders will be gathering in Glasgow, and all the important policy makers will be participating in that conference. The Muslim majority countries vary enormously when it comes to their own natural resources, geography, biosphere, and economic development. Nonetheless, many of the regions where Muslims live are highly vulnerable to climate change. For example, in the Middle East and North Africa, the climate is arid or semi-arid, making the region one of the most vulnerable to rising heat stress and shrinking fresh water availability. Whilst in Muslim majority countries in Asia, such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, or Indonesia, they have faced extreme weather events in recent years and flooding. Many studies indicate that the majority of Muslims around the world regard climate change as an important societal challenge. But some scholars have suggested that ongoing economic challenges in the Muslim majority countries lead local population to prioritize economic development and poverty reduction over climate change mitigation. So there are actually other priorities, and I'm not talking about this from political perspective, but it is important for us in this meeting to appreciate the context that those countries, the majority Muslim countries, the discourse suggests that they actually suffer from economic challenges, and that actually is very evident when it comes to the way how the politics go around in those countries. So prioritizing economic development, poverty reduction, unemployment, those sort of issues over and above climate change mitigation. So it is important, and Muslims in those countries do appreciate the importance of climate change, but there are other priorities that are taking the scene in those regions. In fact, in one survey, it is showing that partly reflect that this prioritization of economic development is also 5 global problems suggest that in the World Value Survey, only 8% of Muslims, apparently from those who, the countries that I'm referring to as Muslim majority countries, selected environmental pollution as the most important problem. So I would like just to talk about the 3 basic interpretation when it comes to how Muslims perceive and interpret climate change in those countries. So the first one is again, they share predominant scientific views by perceiving as the main human activities and human activity as the main cause of ongoing climate change. So those Muslim environmentalists identified that the modern economic system is the core source of the problem, attributing the responsibility for climate change mainly or partially to us humans' activities. In addition, some specifies that Muslim leaders regard industrial production, deforestation, burning waste, and fossil fuel-based transportation are actually some of the main cause of this issue. In addition, the economic system of the West and its excessive lifestyle are frequently seen in those countries as the root cause of environmental problems. So this is one area or one way of perception of climate change. The other interpretation is that it actually identifies that spiritual causes for climate change. And this interpretation has 2 substantial different approaches. So the first one refers to that the spiritual causes regarding climate change is actually to do with the God's punishment for human sins, whereas the second interpretation of the spiritual cause is to do with humans' destiny and the looming end of times. In fact, in this particular view, it is showing that humans are not responsible for climate change because it is simply the fulfillment of an end-time prophecy. But in terms of the God's punishment for human sins, or those who perceive it in this way, the perception of climate change as God's punishment attribute the cause of environmental degradation to the immoral behavior of humans. In fact, in this perspective, the sinful behavior of political leaders, and I mean corruption, war, or if you like, local population. And what I mean by this, stealing, greed, injustice, would lead good to respond with different forms of environmental degradation or disasters. The final view of the perception of climate change from the Muslims' perspective, it's actually thinking that climate change has something to do with the skepticism, all that skepticism around climate change. And this is actually among Muslim communities and governments of Muslim majority countries. In fact, in Saudi Arabia, this has been long held view that this is there is a huge skepticism when it comes to climate change. In fact, some scholars report that Muslims farmers in the Jamuna River region, and the Jamuna River region is in Bangladesh, where the soil is eroding and shifting, perceive the concept of climate change as a poisonous knowledge from the West. Similarly, some scholars suggest that Muslims who approve an Islamist political ideology tend to regard environmentalism as a Western conspiracy to weaken Muslim majority countries in terms of their economic development and population size. Due to the importance of political Islamism, global warming has not received strong prioritization on the political agenda of Muslim majority countries. Most scholars indicate that this has been the case for a long time. I'd like now to talk very briefly about, in my last slide here, about the mitigation strategies, and I call actually this: how can Lutonians contribute positively to that discussion, to climate change? Before I talk about this very briefly, I'd like just to talk about it from the Muslims' world perspective. Massive oil production in the Middle East, as you would most of audience will know, and deforestation in Indonesia, Mali, and Nigeria, as well as carbon-intensive consumption habits. And by this I mean car used, air conditioning. All of this indicates strong mitigation potentials in Muslim majority countries. In response to these challenges, governments of Muslim majority countries have in fact signed international agreements, and some have started to implement green economy strategies. For example, as I mentioned earlier on, I brought the example of Saudi Arabia as an example, but actually after a long history of climate change skepticism at the United Nations climate negotiations, Saudi Arabia has begun to diversify its oil dependent economy and has sought to promote low carbon transportation technologies. Likewise, in Abu Dhabi, city of Masdar, the United Arab Emirates, in Masdar city, this is in fact one of the pioneering urban development projects striving to develop carbon neutral city. So there is actually positive contribution there. And against this background, scholars have stressed the potentials of Muslim organizations and leaders to promote environmental concerns. This includes their ability to reach broad population in Muslim majority countries through public messages, Friday prayers, and also ethical teachings. In Luton here, we, being citizens of the world, and I call it that Lutonians think globally, act locally. We have great opportunities in terms of campaigning publicly to raise greater concern about climate change and lobbying among political decision makers. This could happen through public statements, media campaigns, and advocacy work. In addition, we can think of materializing change by undertaking socio-technological measures to reduce carbon emission, switching energy consumption of religious buildings to renewables. I know that the government has very recently talked about boiler switching and all of the initiatives that the government is introducing. I think we as Lutonians, irrespective of which faith group we belong, we should very much explore and push for more green, renewable way of practicing our faith in a more environmentally friendly way. And last but not least, disseminating pro-environmental values and worldwide views to their religious constituencies, and thereby potentially influencing their lifestyles. And this could happen through religious schools, for example, all the religious schools teaching that we have, the faith schools in Luton, messages during religious services, and so on and so forth. I know that I can spend the next hour or so talking about other tips and ways that we can do as community members of this community, Obviously, we can also contribute positively to all the initiatives and all the charity work that is going around our community. I myself, the Rotary district representative of the environment in Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire and Buckinghamshire. And I know that through Rotary, and that's just an example, as a charity organization, we do a lot of wonderful work here and there in the region. And I think our faith groups should embrace and be a proactive player when it comes to reducing and mitigating the effect of climate change. And last but not least, obviously, we have to think very carefully about what Dr. Khanum and the mayor talked about, being meat-free eaters. I'm afraid I have all the sins because I still eat meat, but I have to think about to stop eating meat sometime in the near future. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to stop my presentation and hand over back to Dr. Khanum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. It was very valuable, but the time, as you can imagine, it was very long, 5 minutes. So I'll have to alert everybody to actually stick to the time limit, 5 minutes. But we'll have to have more discussions and debates in the future on these kind of solutions, because those are far more important than defining and describing problems that we have, because solutions are what we have to look for. Thank you very much, Mohammed, again, and we'll see you again very soon, I hope. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Colin Hall. He's a member of Luton Quakers community and president of the Bedfordshire Beekeepers Association and an eminent local climate activist. May I now invite Colin Hall here, please?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm just going to share screen in a moment, if I may.
Sure.
Quakers like to begin in silence, and I'd like to do that, but I'll add into that silence some pictures and some written words for just a little while. The words may not be showing up on the right side of your screen, but it is saying that this isn't just a Canadian crime, that it's actually financed by British banks and facilitated by the British government. I dwell on these pictures because they're an indication of the scale of the problem that we face and the huge forces that are ranged against change. Quakerism is about faith in action. What work chooses us? Our profound sense of that of God, the sacred in all people, has led us to advocate for human rights and to support the work of the United Nations. Quakers at the United Nations view climate change as a peace and justice concern. Climate crisis, as we've heard, is a matter of life and death for the whole world, including unborn generations. It embraces issues that include poverty, forced migration, and systemic racialism. We will all suffer from climate breakdown, but poorer nations, women, children, the weak, will suffer soonest and most terribly, when it is the rich and powerful, including many in the UK, that have done most to cause it. The rich must give back to the poor. As Quakers, some of us say that we cherish the sacred in all things, that we share a sense of oneness and connection with all creatures and the very web of life. We remember that along with the whole earth, we too came from stardust. I feel at one with the public statements on climate change from every major faith community, some listed on the slide here. For all our differences, they amount to a moving, shared spiritual vision to live and act by, and which the world needs. Our combined faith voice also provides straight truth-telling, counteracting the forces of money and power that strive to keep things as they are. This is the truth, that we are grossly over-consuming the Earth's resources, poisoning ecosystems, and destroying the natural world, as well as, of course, stealing from the future, as we have heard. Science confirms all this. The Living Planet report found global wildlife populations decreased by 68% between 1970 and 2016, with no sign of slowing. A third of the Earth's fertile soil, the very basis of life itself, is now moderately or severely degraded. Ever-growing consumption wipes out the gains from renewable energy, and so worldwide carbon emissions continue to rise unchecked. Together, we look for a system that addresses the underlying causes. We ask for radical action by our political leaders in our own countries and on the world stage. We demand a rapid end to fossil fuels. We yearn for a reformed green economic system. Is hope possible? According to a worldwide survey, over half of young people believe that humanity is doomed. We must not offer hope that is shallow and unfounded. Huge damage with irreparable loss has been caused to the earth and its children. Worse is to come. However, I believe that there are many signs of the great turning, that time prophesied in history when we can move towards living in right relation with creation. We have so much scientific knowledge about the issues and what technologies we can use. Public understanding has changed enormously, and perhaps we're ahead of our politicians in this. COVID, dreadful as it has been, has shown that governments can act to provide money on a scale hitherto deemed impossible, that people can radically alter their behavior. They must, because technology alone will not save us. Quakers believe that people can act to transform their own lives. For many of us in society, but not all, this could mean consuming less, shopping less, yes, going vegan, reducing our carbon footprints, freeing ourselves from the treadmill of materialism, finding fulfillment in greater emotional and spiritual awareness. Our renewed links with nature can help us to be a voice for all those creatures and life forms that have no voices in our sense. And we can connect with millions of others in loving concern, in one mind, me, you, government. So, let's take action in our own lives. Let's do it to enable action across the world.
Thank you, Colin. It was a sobering presentation and also some hope there for us. Thank you very much. It was very well done. Thank you. May I now invite Yogesh Bhai he's the trustee and general secretary of the Sri Sanatan Seva Samaj of the Hindu temple in Lucy Farm. He's also one of the trustees of Luton Council of Faiths and is a community ambassador of Hindu temple and its community in Luton. Yogesh Bhai, it's yours now.
Namaste, and thank you for the opportunity to say a few words from the Hindu perspective. I'm going to keep it a very low level, how Luton is practically reacting, because I take so many school assemblies as well. And when you see little children come up with questions, they are so clever. They are so clever, and they do sort of have a very deep insight into what future and what we are doing about it. So Hindu religion, known in the present times, it is as a Hindu religion, is a Sanatan Dharma. It's a universal and eternal faith. The key beliefs arise from the Sanskrit word himsa, which means to harm. But Mahatma Gandhi brought it to our media to say ahimsa, which means not to harm with word, sight, or even deed. And this is very much applicable today in our world. The authoritative scriptures of our religion, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the Agamas, have given detailed, balanced view of what respect, reverence, and how to live a life that is in balance with our ecosystem and creation. So you see, if you visit Hindu temples, you will see gods and in relation with animals as well. So you see the goddess Durga sitting on lion or tiger, the Lord Krishna with cow, and the scientists of today have worked out the logistics of the cow, but it has been said through these ancient scriptures how important it is to revere and respect the cows, which give you milk, butter, cheese, endless number of products. And when it dies, your shoes are made from the hides. And if you go to the Hindu temples, you also see our gods with the consorts, which represent equality, and Shiva, which is the Lord of creation. You see Shivlinga, which represents creation, and Ganesha is with an elephant head, and Hanuman, the monkey head. So you see the respect of all animals and all living things is quite with us. And in our ceremonies, we use water for purity and flowers are for love. And in a traditional Hindu home, you will see holy plants, basil plants. And that is the reverence and respect of plants. And if you see Indian villages, they have banyan trees, which is like a square in the town where people meet, respect, take shade, and drinking fountains are also found there. The scientists have worked out the knowledge of how expensive and wasteful the animal farming is as opposed to the agricultural farming. And Hinduism has always proposed and given the example of living a vegetarian life. And quite a big percentage of Hindus are vegetarians. And they have shown the earth, the civilization, as to so many hundreds of our we can live without meat by eating so many diverse things and be sort of nourished healthily. Within internet technology, within the Luton and Hindu Community Center, we have been doing Zooming and meetings and advising people on how to carry on and address climate crisis, as well as the pandemic and isolations that we have had. So we have been encouraging people to avoid disposable plastics, to take interest in gardening and revere and respect vegetables, fruits, and flowers. We are advising people not to litter, which is a global problem. As we've heard, the world is trying to address 1.5 degrees of temperature rise. And we, at our center, we always say to all our members to reduce their temperature gauges in their houses, to live 2 degrees less, to try and save energy and change their lifestyle, and use other means of keeping warm. All the water that people use without detergents can be recycled in your gardens quite well. And people should be encouraged to share cars and use lifts. And the local authorities should actually take a lead in providing cheaper and better transport. I think we heard from the parliament houses that they are going to finance more towards local transport, which is a good news as well. So I have a lot of feeling with the positiveness that yes, we can turn this circle around with the spiritual faith, following the social participating in eco projects, reverence and respect with cultural activity, and the physiological improvements of diets, habits, clothing, caring for the environment. I have every hope that we will be successful to make a healthy environment and turn the circle around. And here I would like to use the word reincarnation, which is what we very strongly believe in. And we should be able to reincarnate our world to another green world. So when people who love the earth come together, anything is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yogesh Bhai. Let's live in harmony with nature and relearn how to live in harmony with nature. Thank you for this. May I now invite Sanjeev Kumar from the Sikh community, please? And he's the General Secretary of Guru Ravidasiya Sangat in Luton. And he has contributed quite a lot to so many needy people during the COVID-19 pandemic that he has been recently given an MBE award. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Nazia. And thank you for inviting me to give a Sikh perspective of the environment and the concerns of climate change. So within the Sikh holy book, the Shri Guru Granth Sahib, the care and the concern for the environment is integral and prominent throughout our teachings. There are 974 hymns within the Holy Scriptures, and 80% of these refer to the nature and importance for caring for your environment. An example of this is in the last verse of the Japji Sahib, or morning prayer, which states, Bhavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Tart Mahat, which means air is the Guru, water is the Father, and the earth, the Great Mother. The importance of the environment has continued in the traditional and historic Gurdwaras, whereby the Sikh faith centers have a sarovar, or a moat, or a tank constructed near the Gurdwara. This was originally built for practical purposes to supply fresh water for cooking in communal kitchens and the supply and for bathing. And the communal kitchens, or langar, is always vegetarian. But in modern times, the sarovar has been used, and the focus of these has been used for spiritual communal cleansing. Mm-hmm. In addition to this, these historic Gurdwaras complexes have amongst them significant trees which are attributed to significant episodes within the Sikh faith. And amongst this is the Duk Banjani tree, berry tree in the Golden Temple complex, which dates over 400 years old. It's been preserved by generations of volunteers. Reflecting back to the Holy Book, I found a quote that kind of summarizes the importance of the environment and the faith in a very short passage. And in translating this, the Lord infused his light into the dust and created the world, the universe, the sky, the earth, the trees, and the water. All are a creation of the Lord. In recognition of the importance of the environment, several national and global Sikh environmental initiatives have begun. In 2019, as a mark of 550 years birth anniversary of our founder Guru Nanak, and part of this of the Eco Sikh project, Sikhs around the world began to plant 1 million trees. It was an initiative to plant 1 million trees as a gift to the world. And recently, the UK Environment Agency has been encouraging Sikh Gurdwaras to reduce the use of plastic disposables in our festivals and celebrations and langars. And this is, all of this, we can use practical measures in our everyday life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You have given me an idea of starting a tree planting in Luton, because I think we should do it very seriously now. Thank you very much for this contribution. I'm going to invite now Sam Taylor and Farzad Farghani from Baha'i community. They are actually long-standing members of Luton Baha'i community, as well as long-standing members and supporters and well-wishers of Luton Council of Faiths. Are you there, both of you?
Hello, I'm going to speak for Sam, I'm afraid.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, it's a quick 2 minutes. Baha'is see climate change and environmental destruction by humans as a symptom of the spiritual disintegration of societies around the globe. We have neglected our duty as custodians of the planet on behalf of the whole living world for today's generation and for future generations. To do the right thing, we have to re-embrace the spiritual virtues which we've neglected. We see the solution to the problem in terms of a spiritual transformation of individuals, the groups to which they belong, and the global community, all working together in the spirit of selflessness and humility, and in respect and wonder at the world in which we should feel so privileged to live. The following quotation comes from the Baha'i contribution for the World Faith and Development Dialogue, which took place in London in 1997, that's 24 years ago. As trustees or stewards of the planet's vast resources and biological diversity, humanity must learn to make use of the Earth's natural resources, both renewable and non-renewable, in a manner that ensures sustainability and equity into the distant reaches of time. This attitude of stewardship will require full consideration of the potential environmental consequences of all development activities. It will compel humanity to temper its actions with moderation and humility, realizing that the true value of nature cannot be expressed in economic terms. It will also require a deep understanding of the natural world and its role in humanity's collective development, both material and spiritual. Therefore, sustainable environmental management must come to be seen not as a discretionary commitment mankind can weigh against other competing interests, but rather as a fundamental responsibility that must be shouldered, a prerequisite for spiritual development, as well as the individual's physical survival. I think that kind of sums up where we are.
Thank you so much. And you have summed it up very well indeed, because we are desperately need this spiritual development and link up with that spirit across the board, because that is where we are lacking totally at the moment. I will move on. Thank you. I'll move on. And then I will ask now David Jonathan to share Sarita Jain's video with us. She's from the Jain community. So Johnny, would you like to share Sarita Jain's video with us, please?
Climate crisis, faith in the environment, Jainism. Jai Janendra, good afternoon, everyone. And I'm looking at how, in terms of Jainism and its philosophies and ideals, how our philosophies align very well with what's happening in terms of climate crisis. So our three gems of Jainism is right knowledge, right faith. When we have right knowledge with right faith, we only then can go up the ladder of the right conduct environment. So one of our greatest tenets of Jainism is called ahimsa, non-violence. And Lord Mahavir preached non-violence to such an extent that he spoke about how non-violence extends to all of life forms. So that whether that be plants, the environment, and what he said was that the most important principle of the environment is that as humans, we are only one element. And furthermore, he spoke about a jiva that is non-living, and said that every aspect, every interaction that we have with even non-living elements actually disturbs those. So if I just give you a quick example, out in the garden, picking up the plant pot, and as soon as I see that, there's hundreds of little insects and bugs and crawling, trying to save themselves. And on the greater level, if I see that with the cutting down of the trees harbor so many life forms on it, in it, under it. They give support, they give food, they give shelter to so many life forms. And so just even by cutting one tree, we are disturbing so many life forms. And so in our daily prayer of forgiveness, Pratikraman, we mention 1 to 5 sensed beings, and we recognize them in the millions. And because the fact that we are on earth, we do impact on them. So therefore, every day we ask forgiveness for our negative impact on the environment. And further, as you've just seen, all life in Jainism is sacred. And as for that reason, Jains are vegetarians. We do not or should not eat root vegetables or eat after sunset. And to that end, even the professions that were traditionally chosen by Jains were based on trying to limit how we adversely impact on our climate and our environment. So another very important tenet of Jainism is non-possession. And Jainism believes that we should not accumulate lots of wealth. We are only the trustees of that same. To that extent, our monks and nuns, they own no possessions. They even walk barefoot. And even when they collect alms, they only do so to consume for that one sitting. And so we have to recognize that we are here only as guests. And Jainism further goes to say,
it got frozen. It has got frozen. Hello, Johnny. It has got frozen.
So I would like to put this forward as a solution. So a resolution, a promise, a goal. To live the Jain way of life. Let me value and respect all life, no matter how small or insignificant. Let me lose my greed and use minimal resources of the world. May I understand that we are all connected. When I do harm to another, I am harming myself. Let me not steal from future generations their livelihoods on their planet. Let me tell the truth and acknowledge the harm that as humans we are doing to our wonderful planet. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to finish this with a Jain prayer. May I forgive all living beings. May all living beings forgive me. My friendship extends to all life form. I do not have enmity with anyone. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Sarita. That was fantastic. And I particularly love to hear, let me not steal from the future generations. And that should be a lesson learned by all people who are actually stealing from the future generations right now at the moment. Thank you again. And our next speaker is a humanist, Stephen Dinaco. He was born in Chicago and continues to live in the greater Chicago area called Valparaiso. I probably have pronounced it wrongly, but anyway, Valparaiso literally means Vale of Paradise, which is aligned with his work as an advocate of conscious evolution and helping realize heaven on earth. Stephen is a strategic innovator with extensive background in finance, technology, and mass media. He is director of a public benefit corporation with a vision to elevate business to shift humanity. Stephen, are you here from America? And is it morning?
I am here. It is, yeah, thank you, Nazia. It's going on noon, so
noon, okay.
Getting to the end of the morning here, but thank you. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you for asking me. And I just want to say I'm grateful to hear from the plant-based eaters and those who are considering it. So just know you have my encouragement as you're considering it. I think it's actually very essential. And we need to hear more about changing the way we diet and raise our food to create a healing earth. So I want to say as part of my comments, first and foremost, that we are earthlings. And I'll paraphrase the late astronomer Carl Sagan, who said, we are made of earth stuff. So as human beings, we are of the earth. We are part of the ecosystem. Through the Industrial Revolution, we've spent so much of our energy and our thought to thinking that we had to conquer nature, to think that we are separate from nature. And all you really need to do is take a deep breath in to know that we cannot live apart from the earth. If I were to ask you right now to take a deep breath and then to exhale that breath and then hold it, you wouldn't be able to hold your breath for very long. I mean, we literally can do without air for minutes, if that. And the air is of our atmosphere. It's of the earth. We cannot do without water for just a few days. And we can't do without food for just a few weeks at the most. And all of those things, the air, the water, our food, all are of the earth. So it makes us earthlings. And the way our systems are designed, our own bodies are designed, we are microcosms of the earth ourselves. So everything that operates our human systems has a parallel on the earth. So we are literally earthlings. And I feel that if we really get in touch with that as a truth, we then can, it's not a really long leap to understand how being stewards of the earth and to really think about how we are using our the intelligence with which we are endowed to create a better present so that the next generations have an even better future. So, and this isn't to say with our endowed intelligence that technology can't be of help, but we mustn't regard technology as our only savior as it relates to climate change. We must believe that as earthlings, nature is fully capable of healing the planet if we give her the chance. And as self-aware, probably as far as we know, the only self-aware beings on the planet, our own consciousness, our own intentions, and our own innovation can contribute to nature's healing. So my invitation to everyone is that we be in harmony with nature as co-creators so that we can give the earth the chance to heal and to restore. So, and then on the global level, I feel we must come together as earthlings, not just as a collective of nation states. We, as earthlings, it doesn't mean anything if I'm an American and somebody else is a European and somebody else is Australian and somebody else is Canadian and somebody else is Indian and so forth. Those nation state labels don't mean anything if we cannot come together in collaboration as earthlings. Mm-hmm. So what I just want to leave you with is and because I work in business and I do a lot of my work in the realm of the conscious business domain, like to encourage everyone to think about, and it's been mentioned by others, how we consume, how we spend our resources, and that we do have truly a voice with the way we spend our resources, including money. And it might take a little bit of extra work and it may not always be convenient, but I invite everyone to seek out those businesses that are doing the best they can and are very mindful about being in partnership with nature and the earth to provide us with services and products that are not depleting resources, but truly to help sustain and to regenerate. So with that, I thank you again for inviting me. I'm really honored to be here, and Godspeed to us all.
Thank you very much, Stephen. It was very illuminating. And I completely agree with you. We are part of nature, but we forget that so often. And we are not here to conquer nature, because another speaker mentioned that, and the storyteller. It's very, very important to remember that. Thank you again for giving your time and thoughts and sharing your thoughts with us. I'm going to invite other humanists now, and they're known to each other, both of them. Rukhsana Reza, she is a medical doctor and development professional with years of experience in public health, including delivering primary and reproductive health care and managing national and local level projects on reproductive health and prevention of STI, HIV, and AIDS. She has extensive experience of working with United Nations agencies as monitoring and evaluation advisor at UNAIDS in Bangladesh. In Canada since 2011, her clinical research and services, especially at Sick Kids and Baycrest Hospital, and as a freelance consultant, are extensive. Her observing passion for years has been exploring convergence of spirituality and science. She believes in the oneness of humanity and nature and unconditional love as a way of healing and regeneration. The floor is yours, Rukhsana.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. I sincerely appreciate Dr. Nazia Khanum, OBEDL Chair, UN Association Luton, her associates and partner organizations for organizing this webinar to bring an unexplored area under mainstream spotlight as an effort to find solutions for an existential crisis like climate crisis. Person believes as a humanist and a believer of oneness of humanity. We are not independent existences. For each breath, we depend on the nature, and our beautiful body depends on the nature for life every moment. We can't exist, as Stephen mentioned, we all are aware of it, without oxygen, water, and nutrients. Not only the greeneries around us, rather the soil, every insect, every life, and everything is contributing to the ecosystem that is making life possible on Earth. We are one big creature together. Space between us is not empty. Quantum physics informs us that we are energy clouds of different densities. Not philosophically, but scientifically, we are connected. We are literally one single body. Our collective unconscious behaviors have been harming our nature, our planet. We are at the verge of 6th mass extinction. Is there all bad news? No. By now we know that actually good news is bigger than bad news. Carbon sequestration for building soil, carbon capture from atmosphere, use of solar power to replace fossil fuel are just few of that good news. I refer quantum physicist Dr. Nassim Haramein to share a beautiful piece of advanced scientific knowledge. That is, the atomic energy that is available in each cubic centimeter of space. If billionth of that is extracted, the whole world can be run for a million years with that. So there is no scarcity of resources in the nature. We know controlling gravity is not a dream anymore. Going to moon for lunch will be a reality, probably in 50 to 70 years. Even accessing wormholes for galaxy travel won't take very long. That means colonizing other planets is a possibility, not only science fiction. We have resources, we have hope, and our awareness or consciousness is evolving. What we need to do, actually, we are to forgive our past, forgive ourselves, and start fresh. We need to start lovingly helping each other and all life around us. We can't exclude anyone, even not our politicians or policymakers. I'd like to take this opportunity to share one of my friends' everyday prayer or pledge related to reversing climate crisis. Her name is Christine Glenn. Christine is from Canada, and she's the director of Humanities Team World Region. By the way, Humanities Team is a global nonprofit in transformational education. I quote Christine, "Every day I say out loud to the love-filled, loving universe the following quote from an unknown author. I never forget that I am a miracle, that I am unique, possessing talents, experiences, and opportunities that no one else has ever had or will ever have. It is my responsibility to become everything that I am, not only for my benefit, but also for everyone else's." I've shared Christine's prayer as I feel that this is my prayer too, and can be any conscious human's prayer. I believe it is time for us to consciously grow and extend our all-out support to overcome our challenges together. We need to be our best and give our best to our beloved planet so it flourishes to its fullest potential we call paradise. This is time to put our love into action. With this appeal, I end my talk here. Thanking you for listening.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was quite moving, actually, though very short. And I hope that some of us will take some inspiration from this. And unconditional love is very difficult, but if it can be given, obviously it can create miracle. Thank you very much, Roxana. It was really, really very, very good. I'm now going to invite, or actually, I'm going to request David Jonathan to invite two people. They are from the Jewish community, Hillary and Gerald Fox. And I think they should be introduced by you as well, David Jonathan, so that they can come and talk to us. Thank you.
Yes, both of them are here with us, and I can see Hillary getting ready to share. Hillary and Gerald both are from Bedfordshire Progressive Synagogue and long-standing members and volunteers in the Luton Council of Faiths, have made immense contributions during the pandemic for charitable causes and continuing to do so for refugees as well. So Hillary, over to you, please. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. And good evening, Nazia and everyone.
Good evening.
Jewish faith, like all different faiths, emphasizes human responsibility to care for the earth and for future generations. In Jewish faith, the concept of stewardship of earth and its resources can be traced all the way to the story of creation. We are all called to guard and preserve the one world we have. Psalm 24 notes, "The earth is the Lord's." This is a clear assertion of God's ownership of the land. It follows then that any act that damages our earth is an offense against the property of God. The Talmud tells the story of the sage Choni, who was walking along a road when he saw a man planting a carob tree. Choni asked, "How long will it take for this tree to bear fruit?" 70 years, the man replied. Choni then asked, "Are you so healthy that you expect to live that length of time and eat its fruit?" The man simply explained that his ancestors had planted trees that now bear fruit for him to eat, and so he does the same for generations to come. This links in with a declaration by the Coalition on the Environment and Jewish Life, COEJL, established in 1993, the tagline of which is "Protecting Creation, Generation to Generation." Jewish tradition values the concept of planting trees so much that many rabbis teach if a man is planting a tree and the Messiah appears, he should finish planting the tree before going to greet the Messiah. In conclusion, Jewish values command us to preserve the earth and its varied life for our sake and for generations to come. It is our obligation to educate ourselves about the dangers of environmental health risks and working to prevent them for the sake of all humanity. Jewish faith teaches us to be partners in the ongoing work of creation. We cannot accept the escalating destruction of our environment and its effect on human health and livelihood. It is therefore our sacred duty to alleviate environmental degradation and the human suffering, and we are hopeful that together with others we can make the difference. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hillary. It was very, very succinct, but so full of information and moving too. Thank you.
Thank you.
What about your husband? Is he going to say anything?
No, I
okay.
spoke on both our behalves.
I'll leave it to the boss.
And I know you're running late as well.
Well done, well done. Thank you very much. Okay, then I'm going to go back to David Jonathan now because we have a presentation from Sister Mary Hayes. She's not going to be here today personally, but she has sent something for us to enjoy, sit back and enjoy, and I'm going to do just that. I think after this very soothing music and all these reflections of what Luton is up to, and Luton Council of Faith, grassroots and near neighbors are up to, we all are up to. We all want the same thing. I am now going to invite David Jonathan to take us to the Q&A and comment session seamlessly from here. Hopefully there will be some questions and some comments too. Thank you very much for listening to all of these speakers, and thanks to them for sharing their wisdom with us and their knowledge with us. And from me, it is goodbye at this point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nazia, and thank you to all the contributors and speakers. We are running quite over time. It's 6:10 already. So I don't think that I would encourage a great deal of question and answer, but there is an opportunity, particularly for those who may not have spoken yet. And if they wish to say anything, even if you don't have a question and you just want to say something that you feel like saying, please wave your hand like this so I can see on the screen, and unmute yourself, and you'll be welcome to say something. I know that there are lots of comments, but there are no questions in the chat box yet. But Anwar Bhai has said something. Can we take our message to the world leaders to protect our world that we live in? Is there any mechanism that the United Nations Luton branch can take it to lobby the world leaders, especially those who are not cooperating, to save us and our planet? And can we raise our voice by sending our message that came out from today's seminar?
Of course we can. Here I am back again. Sorry, I am back, but we can take it. And we are planning to send the summary of all of these things to our 2 MPs, as well as publish it in the local newspaper and in our website. And I'm sure the Council of Faiths will do the same. And when we write to our MP, we always urge them to raise these issues, and hopefully COP26 will have an opportunity for politicians to raise all these issues, and they will be there. So we will be there, don't worry. We are not just going to be outside of the big game that's going on in COP26 at that event in Glasgow. We are part of that. So all of these things will go back, but to share this with young people is very important, because there was a comment about that we should share this information with young people. I'll have to consult some of the head teachers in consultation and support of probably Council of Faiths as well, as to how we reach out to schools for some of the information which they may need or they may find useful. So there are ways, and we are not going to stop here. Thank you.
In other words, someone said, this is not the end, this is just the beginning. And I think this battle or this struggle, this revolution has to continue. I don't know whether many people knew, but on 7th of October, we hosted a man who was a South Indian Hindu gentleman walking from London to Glasgow. And he is currently up north somewhere, I think he's crossed Lake District, and he's on his way. But when he came to Luton, the chair of Luton Council of Faiths in his presentation to him said that you are Luton, and you take our wishes and our love and our concerns for climate justice with you, and you represent us as much as you represent everyone else. So I think there are multiple ways through which community organizations, individual faith communities, individuals, people of no faith, they are all doing their bit. And I think we just need to keep at it and not give it. Sorry, anyone else wants to say something who haven't spoken yet? If not, then I will quickly just make a couple of announcements before I hand over to David Cheeseman for the closing comments and the way forward. One of the things, one of the comments that was in the chat box was about planting trees, and there's lots that we have talked, and Dr. Nazia also picked on that, oh, I must begin to plant trees. Sikh community also mentioned something around planting trees. So I just wanted to make you aware, unless you are already aware of, but if you aren't, then there is a big drive on behalf of faith communities in Luton to lobby the local council, and local council has finally agreed to develop a peace garden initiative in Luton, which will see planting of nearly 500 to 600 trees in the memory of all those who have died of COVID. That is just one of the efforts, but there are lots of other area groups and friends groups in different parts of the town that we have been linking with as Council of Faiths, as grassroots, as near neighbors, where people are really seriously working very hard to lobby the council officials and the politicians to ensure that we deliver on our commitment to become carbon neutral by 2040. Colin is one of the key activists in Luton. We are very proud of you, Colin. He has been relentlessly working, not only now, because everything is hot now around this area, but Colin has been there ever since I have come into Luton, ever since I have known him, has been raising concerns and issues around, and has gone into schools to deliver workshops. And there, likewise, so many of us are doing whatever we can, and we must continue to do what we can. On 6th of November at 1 p.m, Colin, probably you can correct me if I'm wrong, you are all invited. Is the date and time right, Colin?
I am not completely sure of the time, but the date is certainly Saturday, the 6th. And can I just add that I think it's important that we have a huge number of people turning out from across Luton, people that are here this evening, but bring friends, publicise it. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we had not just dozens, but thousands of Lutonians there?
Indeed. Indeed, I have just checked and verified. It is at 1 p.m. at the footsteps of Town Hall. It is a global solidarity demonstration for climate justice. People all over the world are gathering in their respective towns, cities and villages and whatnot. So in Luton also there is a solidarity demonstration that's being put up at the footsteps of Town Hall at 1 p.m. on Saturday. I would strongly recommend and encourage, as much as Colin has as well, for us to come in great numbers and support the cause. Over to David.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, that's a very interesting initiative. I think that's something that is definitely worth following up on. I'm conscious that we're over time, so I'll go through a quick canter at the end here, and try to finish on a positive note, as the proceedings themselves have been very positive. First of all, I would really like to thank all of our guest speakers and participants from around the world for joining us today and making this a really stimulating and thought-provoking event. It's the first time we've looked at climate change specifically from a faith perspective, and I found it very interesting. It brings a fresh perspective to the debate about the climate crisis. Is such a vast challenge. There often seems so little political will to resolve it. It's very easy to fall into despair and feel that there's really nothing we can do about it. And I think that one of the things that came out today is that whether we belong to a formal religion or whether we simply have a secular belief system, we get strength from sharing the aspirations, values, and principles of our wider communities. And it's that sense of sharing values and the sense of solidarity that we get from that, which empowers us to act. And it's important to remember that despite the vastness of the challenge, individual actions do count when they form part of a collective endeavour. And it's actually worth, rather perversely in a sense, thinking the great crisis that we face today is actually the outcome of a collective endeavour. The climate crisis is the outcome of countless decisions made by organisations and individuals over a very long period. And we did all of this because we did not know the consequences of our actions. So it was actually our ingenuity. We've been brought into this mess through our own ingenuity and determination. It's actually quite impressive if you think of the impact we've had. It shows what we could do. Now, I believe that just as ingenuity and determination brought us into this mess. Now that we understand, or are starting to understand, the consequences of what we've been doing for the past couple of 100 years, I'm confident that we are now starting, the world is now starting a new collective endeavor. And I firmly believe that our ingenuity and determination will eventually take us out of this mess. I'm absolutely certain it's
got frozen.
As I said, it's actually quite impressive. If you think it may be very frightening, it's quite impressive, the impact that we've made, and I think we can make a counter impact. So whatever happens at COP26 in Glasgow in the coming couple of weeks, or at the beginning of next month, what I would like us to take away from this today is that we should remember that the actions we take as individuals do matter, and it does all add up. And as a result, what we should do is incorporate climate awareness into our everyday belief systems. And I think it's worth thinking of it as being similar to a belief. It's something we believe in. Once it forms a part of our belief systems, then it will automatically inform our approach to the world around us and the decisions we take. And many people have spoken today about the various small decisions that we may take as individuals about heating, lighting, shopping, diet, etc. These things, as I said, they may be small, but they do add up. And at the same time as taking these decisions, we need to bear in mind that there are people who do not fully understand the impact of the climate crisis, and who are not fully aware of the issues. And so we should continue to raise awareness of the crisis in schools and across communities. And I think a lot of ideas have come up today about ways in which this can be taken forward more widely. So there's a combination, regardless of, as I said, regardless of whatever happens in Glasgow, which we can't influence directly, we can make a difference on our own. We can continue to campaign. Events like the one that Johnny and Colin mentioned just now are a way of making one's voice heard and building up this collective endeavor, which is what I believe will eventually get us out of this. So I hope you have all enjoyed this afternoon's debate, and I hope you found it inspiring. I certainly did. I got a lot out of it, and I think it's a really, really interesting and useful way of looking at the climate crisis. I think it has brought a lot out. So thank you for joining us this afternoon. We hope we will see you again at other events. And so for now, goodbye, or good afternoon, or good morning, or good night, depending on where you happen to be. So thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you all have a safe evening.
Okay, then we'll have to say goodbye.
Yeah, now we should all leave.
Goodbye, everyone.
Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye.